Hello grade 10. This is a video in preparation for the Angry Birds problem, quadratic problem. So let's start with some few information that you already know. Okay, let's go over about the physical feature of a quadratic function in a graph. All quadratic function will have a parabola as a physical feature. It will all look like a parabola. So given in here, you have an example of a parabola and in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. This is the form that we're going to use. Okay, now, all parabola or graph of a quadratic function will have an axis of symmetry which will divide your parabola into two equal parts. Okay, and in this axis of symmetry is your vertex. Okay, now remember that you will be able to find the axis of symmetry by using the formula x is equal to negative b over 2a. You will know the values of your b and a from your equation in here. So a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant in your equation. Okay, so that's your axis of symmetry formula. Let's now have and discuss about the leading coefficient A. Okay, when your leading coefficient A is a positive, your parabola will be opening upward. Okay, this is what it would look like. And your vertex will give you the minimum value or the minimum point of the parabola. Now, if it's the opposite and your leading coefficient or your A is negative, and then you can see here it's also red, then your parabola should be facing down or it's opening downward. And your vertex now is on top, and the vertex is the representation of the maximum value or the maximum point. Okay. So let's have an example. I hope you already know. Let's graph the function of x is equal to negative x squared plus 6x plus 7. Let's find all the relevant points that we would like to see in your graph or in your parabola. We should have the vertex, the y-intercept, and x-intercepts. First, let's find the axis of symmetry. When we are trying to find the axis of symmetry, we're going to use this formula, x is equal to negative b divided by 2 times a. Your negative b or your b is x over here, the coefficient of x. So that's 6 divided by 2. And let's find out what is a. A is the coefficient of x squared. You don't see anything here, so that means it's 1. And because there's a negative sign here, so it means you have a negative 1. So let's replace all these variables by those values that I have mentioned. Okay, so now I have replaced it. Negative 6 divided by 2 times negative 1. Negative divided by a negative will give you a positive value, and so that our axis of symmetry is 3. 3 gives you the information where your axis of symmetry is going to be, which I will show later. And your x here is also the x coordinate of the vertex. Now that we know the x coordinate, we can just substitute all the x's in your equation with a value of 3 to get the y coordinate. So we're going to follow this equation. F of x now, I will just make it to y. So y is equal to, your x is 3 squared plus 6 times 3 plus 7. Remember that you have a negative sign over here. So that when we simplify it, 3 squared is 9. And then you have the negative symbol here. So you have a negative 9 plus 6 times 3 is 18 plus 7. Simplify it further, and your y coordinate is 16. Now let's go back to your original equation, which is a negative value. Okay, so that means that your a is negative, so your parabola should be facing downwards. Okay, so we now have here a parabola that's facing downwards, and let's plot your vertex, which is 316. There you go. And then your axis of symmetry being 3, so you have the broken line over here to represent the axis of symmetry. Now let's continue and find our x-intercepts. There are 3 ways or 3 methods that you can use to find your x-intercepts. First is factoring, second, using the quadratic formula, and third, completing the square. Since in your previous examples I already used the completing the square, this time I'm going to use factoring. So let's go back to our equation and let's factor that one. Okay, now what I did here is I isolated the negative symbol. So I put a bracket, put negative sign outside, and everything else inside are now the opposite symbols. Okay, so because for me this is easier to factor. So now I'm factoring x squared minus 6x minus 7. I'm thinking of factors of 7, negative 7, that will give me negative 6. Okay, when I add them. So I'm going to put it here. I will have a negative 7 plus 1, because negative 7 times 1 is negative 7, and negative 7 plus 1 is negative 6. Okay, now I put back the negative symbol so that my x is going to be negative x, and negative times a negative is positive, so you have a negative x plus 7 times x plus 1. I'm going to set it to 0 so that your x is equal to 7 and x is equal to negative 1. So our x-intercepts are points 7, 0 and negative 1, 0, and you can see it here in the graph, negative 1, 0 and 7, 0. Now we're almost done. We are only missing the y-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to show you the same graph, but we're going to find the y-intercept. Y-intercept is easy to find or easy to solve. All you have to do is set all your x to 0. So for y-intercept, f of x, your x now is 0 because you're looking for what is that point that is on the y-axis. If your point is on the y-axis, it means that the value of the x-coordinate is 0. So your x is 0 squared plus 6 times, replace x by 0 plus 7. This is 0, this is 0, so you only have 7. So your y-intercept is 0.07, and let's plot it here, and you will have 0, 7. And now your graph is complete. You are going to use this in solving the Angry Bird problem. Okay. I hope everything is clear. Bye, grade 10.